They blame the label. The label didn't pay me. It's not really how it works. Your contract is between you and the artist. If the artist doesn't reach out to you, you can't just wait around. And if they don't answer you, you have to file a song takedown. Yeah, I'll just warn that tech is getting better at noticing AI infringements. You might not get caught now. You probably will get caught at some point.
Welcome to the Made in the Studio podcast, where we spotlight some of the creatives behind your favorite songs. I'm your host, Desmond A., and today we have a special guest. Today's guest has a company named Producer Royalty, which helps producers collect uncollected royalties so they can focus on the creative side. His company has helped producers collect over $7.5 million in royalties. Some of their clients include popular producers such as Turbo, Max Shooter, Kid Hazel, Project X, and many, many more. It's with great pleasure that I introduce to the podcast attorney Daniel Cruz Hernandez. Daniel, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
For sure, man. Thank you for the introduction. That was really good. I already know that this is going to be a great episode.
Now, Daniel, starting from the very beginning, so what made you want to get in law in general, and then what made you want to focus on the producer side?
Yeah, so I'll be super brief just because my brand, Producer Royalty, we have a content brand as well. Our focus is just on value. So story is cool as long as it contributes to value. So I got into the business side because I had artist friends that wanted to be artists, and I managed them, but I wasn't really doing shit for them, and they weren't really doing shit themselves. So I realized I was very dependent on their success. So I discovered entertainment law, and that was an opportunity to kind of work like an artist, but diversify the amount of clients that you have, and you know, because you need successful clients to be successful. So on the business side, so I got into the legal side because I just had a love for philosophy, I guess, and you know, one of the things I got into was entertainment law. So that's all I'll say about that. How did I get into producers was I become obsessive. So when I decide I want to do something, I research the fuck out of it. I was looking into music lawyers, and I discovered a few young music lawyers that built a brand and a reputation, and based off of educating producers. And I noticed there was a big hole in the market. There was only a couple of lawyers that were doing it. Yeah, I decided to devote a good part of my life, a couple years, to just figuring out what was going on with producer payments. And you know, I saw there was a big opportunity to. I'm an entrepreneur before I'm a lawyer. In the sense of how I think. I love to find problems and find creative ways to solve them. So with producers, there was an obvious hole in the market. There was a lot of money that was going uncollected, and I was seeing people talk about it, but not really anybody doing anything about it.
When it comes to producers, a lot of times people say, you know, make sure you register for ASCAP and BMI. So that's all a lot of producers know, unfortunately. So there's two copyrights in the music business. So what are those two copyrights, and how exactly do they work for producers?
Yeah, so I think everybody that wants to make a career off of music, unless maybe you work on the marketing side, but anybody else that's on the business side needs to understand that there's two copyrights behind music because all the money is flowing from one of those two copyrights. So, though the simplest way I understand it, but you might have to listen to it 30 times before you understand it. I know that's what I had to do, and most people have to do, but I'll explain it the simplest way that makes sense to me. The first copyright is the underlying composition copyright, also more commonly referred to as the publishing for a song. And that is the unrecorded version of the song. So if you write a song, if you were to write out the notes and the lyrics onto a piece of paper, write out all the hi-hats and all that type of stuff, all the patterns that go into it onto a piece of paper, and don't record it, but you still made a song. So that's the composition copyright, the publishing, and that's one part of it. As a producer, you'll probably get 50% publishing. If there's multiple producers, you'll split that. That's mostly with hip hop. With other genres, you might get less or more. And then there's the master recording. Everybody's heard of masters before. That is an actual recorded version of a composition. Record labels typically own the master. Publishers typically own or at least administer the composition side. If you're independent artists, you'll probably own your own masters, and maybe you'll work with DistroKid, give them a license to distribute it, or whoever you're working with to distribute it.
That's a great way to break it down. Now, what exactly is a master royalty, and why exactly do you think so many producers overlook it?
Yeah, so we focus on the master royalty because it is just a huge gap in the market. There's not many companies, there's not really any companies that are focused on collecting the master royalty because very few producers are owed a significant amount of master royalties. So your question was, what is a master royalty, right? So, you know, there's two copyrights, right? The label or maybe the artist, if it's independent, owns or controls the master typically, especially with hip hop. And how that works is whoever owns or controls the master usually collects all of the money that the master generates. This is not like publishing. On publishing, multiple people own the composition for the song. On the master side, usually only one person owns it. And because of that, that person collects, or that company collects, all of the money and then is supposed to pay out the artist or the producer, whoever's owed a percentage of that money, their royalties after they collect it. However, they're only, most of the time, they're only required to pay out a percentage after the song or maybe the album, depending on the contract, recoups, meaning it makes all the money back. So the label, let's say they put $1 million into the song, they're not going to pay out the producer or the artist until that $1 million gets made back. So in today's market, things are recouping a little bit more than before, depending on how you look at it. Depends on what era. But I would say in today's market, understanding master royalties is more important than ever, because so many songs are recouping due to the amount of money that's being generated from music. So more and more producers are being owed master royalties. And it's also not like 10 years ago where there was only maybe 20 years ago, there was a handful, maybe 5 handfuls of producers that worked on most of the things. Nowadays, you look at the credits, we all know there's 100 producers on. I'm working on the Kodak album right now. I have a couple of producers on it. And I think there's like over 100 producers on it. There's 29 songs. There's 4 producers on all of them. Maybe not 100, but there's a lot of freaking producers. So that means most of these guys, there's so many guys on the Kodak album, probably none of them are going to recoup, if I'm being honest, but maybe there might be one of them that recoups. So that means that only a couple producers out of the 100 on there are going to be owed master royalties. And that's really why nobody talks about it. Everybody says you got to get BMI and ASCAP to collect your publishing, because everybody, even if your song gets 2 streams, you're generating 0.005 cents in publishing royalties. But that's not how the master works. Now, everything I said so far is about major label songs, right? Because that's our focus. So naturally, that's just where my brain goes. On the independent side, as a producer, if you're working with an artist that's not giving you any money up front, then you have a very fair argument for either co-owning the master or having a really nice royalty on the master. And the way that usually gets paid out is they will register your split directly with whoever they're releasing the music through. So if it's DistroKid, they're going to put your split, if you have leverage to get 50% if you're not getting anything up front, they're going to register your split with the distributor. So DistroKid, and they'll, every time the artist gets paid, the producer gets paid. If you don't get your split registered with the distributor, the only other way to get your master royalties is have the artist pay you out, calculate what you're owed, and pay you out. It's not going to happen. We work on this all the time. It's very difficult. And if they do, the accounting is going to be wrong. So if you want to collect your master royalties from indie artists, I'm sure a lot of you guys are owed master royalties from indie artists. You should tell the artist directly, I need you to register my split with whoever you're distributing with.
You know, some producers want to go straight for the major label artists, but there's definitely a lot of value in independent artists, and we have the internet now, so a lot of money could be flowing your way, guys. So what's one common mistake that you see personally that makes it difficult for producers to get paid?
The first one is speaking up. Most producers, when they get their first placement, they're getting a $500 advance, $1,000 advance, and they're not working with a lawyer because they're either intimidated to ask a lawyer to represent them for something so small. There's already not much of an advance, and they probably don't have a manager yet. And if they do, the manager doesn't know what they're doing either, because there's not that much money to go around. So most producers, they get the placement, they get the, either they never get reached out to by the artist, because let's say artist is working with Empire or Create Music Group, who's a small independent distributor. Empire and Create usually don't even confirm that the artist actually cleared the rights to the songs. What a lot of people don't realize is they blame the label. The label didn't pay me. It's not really how it works. Your contract is between you and the artist. Now, there's definitely some things that labels do that stop producers from getting paid, but for the most part, you have to work out your deal with the artist. That's the first step. You're not talking to the label most of the time. Sometimes you are. Sometimes the A&R steps in, but a lot of times you're talking to the artist manager or you're talking to the artist lawyer, and you have to work that deal out. And if the artist doesn't reach out to you, you can't just wait around. Obviously, you need to follow up with them, stay on top of them. And if they don't answer you, you have to file a song takedown, file a takedown on Spotify. And when you file it on Spotify, it will put a claim on there. They'll know exactly who to reach out to, and they'll reach out to you if they want the song to come up, stay up. Now, there's a lot of issues with Spotify takedowns nowadays, which we could get into if you want to. So yeah, first step is you got to actually be proactive about getting the money. Second one is just follow up. I mean, just because they reached out to you once, what I see a lot of times, a producer reach out to me and they'll be like, hey, I haven't gotten paid for this song with this artist that, and $1,000 advance, not too much. I don't really know what to do. I tell them, first thing I tell them to do is forward me the email thread so I can see what happened. They follow up, hey, just checking in here. One time, 2 months ago. You can't do that. You have to follow up every week, every 2 weeks. If you're on a big album, clearing a album for an artist is a lot of work. takes a lot of time. There's a lot of producers, a lot of people, things slip through the crack. The people who get paid are the ones that speak up and the ones that go forward, and actually try to vouch for them. So if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to review your email thread and just give you some guidance on what to do, and how to get paid.
All right, perfect. A lot of gems there, guys. Make sure you pay attention to that. Don't just hit them up once and then go about your day. You got to follow up, stay consistent, stay persistent, and let's see if you can get a response back. Now, Daniel, you just mentioned there a second ago about there being issues with Spotify takedowns. So, what are you seeing so far as issues when it comes to Spotify takedowns?
Yeah, so what we used to do is when we filed the Spotify takedown, we used to have a cookie cutter. In theory, this is exactly what you should say to Spotify to get the song taken down. And we used to go on the Spotify takedown form, because if you ever filed a takedown on Spotify, there's a form. You look up Spotify takedown, and the first thing that will come up should be a form that says report illegal content or something like that. And then you fill out that form. And I used to put in exactly what you would expect Spotify to have to, like things like, I swear under perjury of law, and this is exactly what happened, and this is how it happened, and these are the facts. Those used to get approved most of the time, maybe 75% of the time. Nowadays, those, when I use the exact same form that was used a year and a half ago, they're not getting approved. And most of the time, almost all of the time, they're getting rejected. So what we've been doing recently is actually just emailing the Spotify DMCA email. You could find that somewhere. I don't remember exactly what it is. My sister handles it, and yeah, we email them the same information. And my get and that works. That's been working for us recently. My guess as to why that is because with AI nowadays, people are just fraudulently putting stuff all the time. So if you have something that is too perfect, the system is assuming that it is a fraudulent claim. And if you email them, that might make it a little bit more realistic and less likely that it is. So my recommendation, if you want to get a song taken down on Spotify, is to actually find the email and then email them what you would have put on the form, and it's more likely to get accepted. And then you could retract a claim too. So that's what a lot of people, oh, if I file the song takedown, then will the streams get reset? And like, am I going to mess up? That hasn't been our experience. Sometimes that does happen, but I don't think there's one time where we've taken the song down and then we put it back up after the artist responds, and the streams got reset. I haven't seen that happen for us.
I've always heard about the takedown request as something that's almost like a red button. Like you really don't want to do that unless you're ready to almost blow the relationship with people. Do you see things that way, or do you see it as just another avenue of getting, the ball pushed down, things moving?
Yeah, so I come from the legal perspective. My focus is actually getting a claim resolved. I don't know what it's like to have a relationship with an artist really that directly, as some people do. And it's hard to say what things are the things. It's hard to know exactly, if I did this, is this the reason why the artist never reached out to me again and I never got another placement with them? It's very hard to say. And I've never been able to pinpoint exactly this is why the relationship got soured when it comes to a takedown specifically, I guess. What I will say is a lot of the times, if especially if it's a major artist, it won't even get to the artist necessarily why the takedown was filed. So you just got to keep in mind, who is your relationship with? If your relationship is with the A&R who's or the engineer who got your music placed, then taking the song down might and not might not affect that relationship, or it might actually do exactly that, because some of I've seen many times where the A&R, the engineer is like, bro, I'm never going to use your work again because now you're making me look bad. I gave the beat to the artist and I didn't. So that happens all the time too. So it definitely happens. It definitely happens. It's hard to say how often it happens, but yeah, you just got to be strategic and understand, if you gave a loop to a random artist or a random producer that barely uses your loop and you got lucky, I mean, I would probably say just full send on trying to get your rights handled and cleared. But if you have a really direct, close relationship with the artist and you're still collecting your publishing on it, then maybe it might be worth it. It's just a business decision, and there's not really a right or wrong answer.
You mentioned AI a second ago. Now, there's a lot of chatter on the internet when it comes to just these generative AI platforms and copyright infringement and things of that nature. So, what are your thoughts on producers using AI in their compositions and how that relates to your role with producer royalty?
Yeah, I'll just warn that the tech is getting better at noticing AI infringements. Like, even if now you put something like I'm dealing with a couple cases that are related to an artist taking somebody else's original vocal and putting that original vocal into whatever they use to recreate that vocal, and it's slightly different, but it's influenced by it's pretty much created from the original. I could put that into Claude and it'll be able to recognize that the inflections at certain points are indistinguishable from the other ones, and that's impossible to recreate, et cetera, et cetera. There's phasing. So I would just warn that you might not get caught now. You probably will get caught at some point. The labels or whoever is going to get privy to this and realize that the labels have, and many companies have, not just the music industry, they have a litigation department in order to make money. That is not a necessarily like a department that they invest into because they just want to protect their work. No, it's actually a profit machine. So if they realize that, oh shit, we scraped one album and we found 30 infringements from it, they're going to probably scrape all the other albums at some point in the future and hire a department to come after you. So I would just be very wary of, like, yes, it might not be an actual sample, but if you're recreating something based on something else, there's a very high likelihood at some point it's going to get caught.
Wow, that's major because a lot of producers out there just kind of, doing whatever right now. So, guys, please be wary, pay attention, know what you're doing. A lot of producers, some producers sell beats online, some producers sell beats in person in the studio and things like that. So, how would you describe the difference between a producer selling a beat as a buyout versus an exclusive beat license? How do those two things differ?
All right, the difference between a buyout and an exclusive beat license. So, they don't have to be different at all. I mean, if you're giving what a buyout means, I'll just go to the definitions of each of them. An exclusive license means you're giving somebody, they are the only person that could use this beat. Let's keep it simple. That's what exclusive license means. Now, saying a license actually implies that maybe you didn't actually sell it to them, meaning you might actually own part of it. So if you're giving somebody an exclusive license, that might actually imply that you have some type of rights into it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that. Now, let's talk about what a buyout is. The definition of a buyout, there's a couple ways people define it. I define a buyout as when you sell when you sell a beat as a buyout, you lose all ownership and royalty rights to it. So you won't receive any more money than whatever you get paid up front. That's how I define a buyout. Some people define a buyout as maybe they're only buying out one of your royalty streams. So they might be buying out just your publishing and they might consider that a buyout and you might still retain a master royalty, or vice versa. To answer your question, the difference is in a buyout, you're selling all of your royalty rights, whereas an exclusive license, it doesn't necessarily mean that. You're just giving somebody the right to use your beat. And the language to look for in the contract is a work for hire. Now, that's where it gets very confusing though, because when you sell something as an exclusive license to a label, it will say that the master is a work for hire. Does that mean it's a buyout of your master rights? No, it doesn't. It means that they're buying the ownership of your master. So now they own your master. That does not mean that you don't get royalties. It means that they own your master and they're giving you, or they could give you, a royalty on the master. So they might own your master as a work for hire and give you a royalty of 3%, 15%, maybe. And work for hire is not necessarily language to be scared of, but it is language to know what it means, and then to try to work around it. If it says that your publishing is work for hire, that's when you should, and it won't say publishing, it'll say composition as a work for hire. That's when you should be like, all right, no, there's usually not a reason to sell your publishing as a work for hire, unless maybe you are some type of, you just created a loop for something and, and sorry, maybe not loop. Maybe you just did one very small contribution to a song and somebody wants to buy it out and you didn't have that much contribution except for that small thing. Maybe then you want to agree to a buyout. But hope that answers your question well.
Absolutely, man. You answered my question and then some. So definitely appreciate that. Now, some producers, speaking of work for hire, they work with session musicians to come and play the guitar, play the bass, play the saxophone, things like that. And a lot of times they do that on a work for hire, having those session musicians come in. So do producers need to get formal paperwork, or is it okay for a producer just have an email from that session musician, them two exchanging like, hey, is it cool if this is a work for hire and you don't get any, back end, any copyrights or anything like that? Is that enough, or there need to be a formal document?
Yeah, so I work on both sides of it. If I'm representing the producer that is using a melody or an instrumentalist in some way, I'm going to tell them, get this in writing. You want to make this very bulletproof and ensure that whatever rights you have, you have. If I'm representing the other side, then I might be like, hey, I mean, if they want to just give you $500 and keep it pushing, maybe, you take that $500, and either way, you're just getting money. So it's not like you need a contract for really much of anything. I mean, there's definitely things in a contract that could help you, like things related to your name, image, and likeness, and things like related to, there's a bunch of things in there. But for the most part, if you are the one using the instrument, you should probably have some type of formalized paperwork that actually says specifically that this is a work for hire, and that you don't receive any other ownership or any royalty rights aside from whatever money that I'm giving you up front. And on the other side, I help a lot of producers where they have sold a beat to an artist through PayPal. All it says is exclusive license. Okay, cool. So you gave them the exclusive license to the beat. That's enough to for the artist to win in court that they have the exclusive rights to use this beat, most likely. But if all you said was exclusive license, bringing it back to what I said before, you probably, or at least you have a great claim to being a co-owner of that master. So if you sold it to them for $500 and it's been maybe 3 to 6 months, not too long, because if it's too long, then you might lose that right. And you're like, hey, I sold it exclusive license for $500. I want a master royalty on it. You have a legitimate claim. Whether you'd win in court, I don't know. There's probably more variables, but you have a legitimate claim to one, being a co owner of that master, and two, having a royalty right on top of just being a co owner as well. So yeah, so it works on both sides. If you, like I said, if you're the one that wants to get the rights and have it actually papered as much as possible.
There's producers out there who are they're gonna get on Spotify, they're gonna get on Instagram, and then they're gonna hear one of their loops playing and nobody cleared anything with them. Now, this producer is gonna think, I can't afford an attorney. I want to go after them. I can't afford an attorney. I know attorneys cost a lot of money. So what can a producer who doesn't have that much cash on hand do to get an attorney to help them and help litigate on their behalf?
The first thing you got to do is realize not all attorneys are the same. Every attorney is at a different stage of their career. They have different people they report to, or they work completely independently, and they have different interests and different goals. So a lot of people get discouraged. They reach out to the first attorney they think of, which is probably a very big attorney. If it's the only attorney you know, it's probably somebody that's really big on social media, or it's a bunch of people use, and those people are very busy, and they're not that interested in working with producers on some small things that will make them $500 in commission. $1,000 even to them might not be that exciting, and something they want to commit to, especially with producers' claims that can take many months, many years potentially to resolve. So first thing to know is not all attorneys are the same. Next thing to know is there's different deal structures, obviously, right? So a lot of attorneys will ask for a upfront payment, an upfront retainer, and most of our clients don't have the ability to just put up $1,000, $2,000 for an upfront retainer and then pay 250 to 550 to 750 an hour to get things resolved. Most people aren't in that situation. I am in the stage right now in my career where I'm willing to take things on. I'm willing to just bet on people because I'm trying to build, I'm trying to grow. I'm 27 years old and I've been an attorney for less than a year at this point. And I know many other attorneys who, actually, I don't know that many other attorneys that are independent at this age, but I will say that there's other people out there that are interested in taking things on that don't have a certain minimum. If I make money right now, I have my assistant, I put it in my pocket. If I make 750, I probably take home about 500 of that. If you work with a huge attorney that works for another law firm, they're already cutting it in half. And they already have a lot of bureaucracy they have to deal with, and it's probably less than half. So just know every attorney's in a different place. Don't get discouraged. I attorney shop all the time because there's certain things I'm not familiar with where like I don't know how to do certain things. I'm not a litigator. I'm not gonna sue somebody in court. I'm not gonna handle all the paperwork that goes into that. So what I do is I reach out to a few different attorneys and I ask them, hey, what would you be able to do for this situation? Is this even a case you're interested in? Is this a case you know how to handle? And if it is, what would you charge for this situation? And everybody has a completely different answer. Some of them might do 30% commission, 40% commission on whatever they take, because they see value in it. If it's a case that they don't believe in that much and they might spin their wheels and it's going to take 100 hours to resolve, they're going to want money up front. But when it comes to, I think your initial question started, correct me if I'm wrong, about a situation where a producer hasn't gotten paid for a song.
Yep, they heard their stuff. They're like, "Man, everybody says I need to get an attorney now. Everybody says I need to get an attorney now." And then how do they do it without dishing out all that money up front?
Yeah, yeah. I would say the younger guys. I mean, now you know one. Hey, you can reach out to me, and I'll probably at least we're scaling pretty quickly and building out my team, and I'll have somebody that probably will be able to help you if it's not myself. And find a younger guy. They're going to be a lot more interested in the guy that represents Ariana Grande, The Weeknd, and whoever else they represent, and they're making hundreds of $1,000s a year off of that. So yeah, just reach out to the young guys is really my suggestion. And the ones that are focused on building with producers, which is not many, because what a lot of people do is, working with producers is a lot of work. It's not easy to have. Right now, we have about 100 cases open at a time, and it's like I could go through my day having certain goals in mind, but because there's so many open cases, it gets derailed every single day. It's not that easy, and it was a bit ambitious for me to want to start a producer-focused law firm because of it's a volume game. That's what it is. Your commission is not that high, and I waste a lot of time when you work on commission. Maybe I get pushed through 75% of the cases. The other 25%, the artist doesn't want to pay anything. There's nothing anybody could do because the artist won't pay anything, and it's not worth suing. So there's nothing anybody could do about it. So I run into those situations all the time, and unfortunately, the bigger cases, and unfortunate for the bigger cases, those things are what pay for attorneys to be able to work on a commission basis. If that makes sense. If I'm being honest, it's the bigger cases that we make $5,000 commission on, 10,000 maybe commission on, that pays for me spinning my wheels for the bottom 30% of cases. You know what I mean?
That definitely makes sense. So, all the producers out there, don't get all in your head. Don't get too nervous. Just get out there, reach out to different attorneys, and see who can work with you. See who's flexible. See who understands your position, and don't just give up and let maybe somebody take advantage of you and just let your intellectual property go. So now there's a producer who just landed their first placement, and they're super excited. They're jumping for joy. Now, Daniel, what would you tell this individual that they need to do next? How would you advise them? Okay, you just got your first major placement. You need to do these steps to ensure that you're all good.
How big are we talking? Who's the artist? Name artist.
Moneybag Yo.
Moneybag Yo. That's a good example. Okay, so you will probably get. Are they the only producer, or they're co-producers? Are they the one that landed the placement?
Yes, one producer.
One producer, they're the only producer on the song, and they landed the placement. All right, you'll probably get somewhere between $5,000 to $7,500 if it's your first placement with Moneybag Yo. Probably. You might get more if you push for more. You might get less. My suggestion for you is that is enough money where you should and you could find a lawyer to represent you right from the beginning to work on that for you. I'm not gonna lie and tell what a lot of people will tell you is every time you get a contract, every time you get any type of paperwork, anytime you get any placement, you should hire a lawyer. I don't think that's true. I tell my clients all the time, this is not worth you paying me to handle this for you. The song's probably not going to do that well. If you think otherwise, let me know. And then it probably is worth you paying for it. But for a Moneybag Yo placement, it's worth, you could find a lawyer to represent you for anywhere between $250 to $1,000, and it'll be worth the money. You might get more money because of it. You could ask right from the beginning, let's say the A&R reaches out to you, hey, we want to, you got one with Moneybag Yo, and we want to start clearing it. Let's say it's the week before the release, because that's often when this happens. And you could ask them, hey, okay, cool. Are you able to put up $500 for a legal fee? Ask that right at the forefront, and then you already know that you'll be able to have your legal fees covered from that. Ask it anyways. Ask it anyways. Whether you are planning to hire a lawyer anyways, or you're not planning to hire a lawyer, just ask them if you're able to put up $500 in legal fees. And a lot of times you'll get approved for that, and then you're not paying out of pocket. Now that still becomes a recoupable expense. So let's say the song recoups and you're owed master royalties, that extra $500 you are paying for. But if it doesn't recoup, then you're not paying for it. Hopefully that makes sense. I didn't want to say the very typical reach out to a lawyer, because it really depends on the size of the record. A lot of times it's not worth it. Especially if it's $500 to $1,000 and you don't expect the song to stream more than 5 million streams, let's say. It's whatever they redline is probably not going to make you more money. And it might not be worth it. And I guess we could talk about what to do or how to communicate with the artist.
Yeah, let's get into that. How exactly should a producer do that?
Yeah, so I would move it to email thread as soon as possible. I think and ideally have an email that is professional, and at the end of the day, the people on the other side are people, and they are clearing this with let's say 30 producers are on the project, And if you are Joe Schmo producer at gmail.com versus Joe Schmo at joeschmo.com, then you might have more leverage to actually get a better deal. And they might just naturally look very quickly and just see that you have a very professional website and you have an email signature and you talk very professionally. And this is a big part, without using AI. One of the biggest things that you notice the most successful people in music do, they don't communicate with AI. They're very straightforward. They're not uh, hello, and then they're just very brief, direct to the point. If I want to get something done, I'm not using a very long, drawn out, very detailed explanation. I'm talking very briefly, couple words in each sentence, direct. Like, this is what I need, and this is what we're looking for, and I say it very confidently, through email, as confident as you can communicate via email, and not do too much. The more you use AI, actually, the less leverage that you're gonna have. I as being on the other side of it, if your email comes across as using AI, then I already know that you don't actually know what the fuck you're doing, and you're just pissing me off. Honestly, pretty much all. Like, I get pissed off at people using AI like all the time, and I don't mean, okay, maybe that's not fair. I won't say pissed off. I will say annoyed, because I have a client today that I redlined an agreement and he ran it through AI. And this is my client, and I love him and I appreciate him. He ran it through AI and he sent six things that he's looking for. AI, and the AI was completely off base and all that. It's just wasting my time. It's not making arguments that make any sense. And it's just pointing out things. And now I have to debate with a computer, and it's just frustrating. So it's very clear. If it sounds too good for an average producer to say, then it probably is. And like I said, very controversial opinion. Using AI for your emails is actually reducing your leverage.
You just touched on producers using AI or Chat GPT to, look at contracts and things like that. And I was just about to mention that, AI has a lot of information, but it doesn't have the expertise of a real human being. So I was just going to ask, can producers put their contracts in AI to help them out, or, just go ahead, leave that alone, go straight to the human experts?
Should a producer use AI to review their contracts? I would say yes, but do your absolute best to find the best prompts that you can, or to train it on some way, shape, or form. Find a producer agreement and DM me if you want one of those that is producer friendly, and say this is what a producer friendly contract looks like. And analyze what is standard, because this is what's considered standard in the agreement. Analyze what's in here before reviewing this next agreement, because there's barely any training available at all for AI to learn what is standard in producer agreements and things like that. It's not really available. So the top lawyers are not sharing with AI how they negotiate agreements and the reasons. It's just not out there. So should you use it? I think so. I think you should use it, but take your time. I've had clients say, show me the exact prompt, and they put in a production deal, which is when you're signing to a producer. Is this a bad deal to sign as a producer? That is not going to cut it at all. And you're going to potentially block blessings from you, which I see all the time, because people get spooked out by things. And then probably don't debate with your lawyer off of things that you saw with AI, because I get that all the time. And it's pretty frustrating as well.
Some producers, they're putting songs out, they're getting some momentum, and then they start hearing that they need to get a publishing deal. What exactly is a publishing deal, and when do you think producers should potentially start exploring publishing deals?
Yeah. So this is another question I love, because the way everybody's going to answer it is a little bit different. So, what is a publishing deal? All right. So, a lot of people will say a publishing deal is when you sign a big co-pub deal, meaning you're giving up half the ownership of your publishing to a company. They're going to give you a lot of money up front. And that's what a publishing deal is. It's when you sign a big co-publishing deal. For me, that's not what a publishing deal is. For what a publishing deal is to me is any deal where you make out a relationship or an agreement with a publisher for them to collect your publishing royalties. So whether you're signing with BeatStars Publishing or Songtrust or whatever it looks like, even if they're taking 5%, 10%, 20%, that is a publishing deal. Your question was, what is a publishing deal and when should a producer sign one?
Exactly.
Which definition do you want me to consider? Signing a big co-publishing deal, or just signing with a admin publisher or any publisher at all?
Admin.
When should you sign an admin deal? Toughest question. So it depends on your goals, right? So if you want to sign a co-publishing deal in the near future, let's say 3 years from now, My suggestion is not to sign any admin publishing deal at all. I'm going to change it to, let's say you want to sign a co-pub deal in the next 1 to 2 years. If you want to sign a co-pub deal in the next 1 to 2 years, my suggestion and what I would do probably if I believe that I'm going to get some really big cuts or some pretty decent sized cuts in the next 1 to 2 years, I wouldn't sign anything. I would be completely self-published and I would learn as best as I can how to collect my own publishing. And the very simple way to do that, if you're based in the United States, to collect most of your publishing royalties, maybe you collect 80% of your publishing royalties, is to make sure that your songs are registered properly with BMI or ASCAP. You're collecting most of your performance royalties that way. And then with the MLC, Mechanical Licensing Collective, you're collecting most of your mechanical royalties that way. It's not going to be all of them, but you might collect most of them. You might collect 90% of them. If you work with a publisher, they might take 20%. So you're actually losing, at least in terms of the amount that you're gaining by working with a publisher. They might collect globally for you, and they'll collect all, which they're not ever collecting all, but they might collect most of your royalties for you, but it might be better off to be self-published. The reason for that is, let's say you sign to a publishing admin company, it might be a 1 year deal, but they have a 2 year retention period. So what that means is you sign to them for 1 year. Let's say you terminate at the end of that year and you're like, oh shit, I got a big cut. Cool. During that year, I want to terminate. I got a big cut. I got all these publishers reaching out to me. I'm about to get a big co-pub deal. First thing they're going to try to figure out is how long is your first thing they're going to figure out is where you signed with the publisher. Next thing they're going to be like, how long is your retention period with that publisher? When does the deal end? How long is the retention period with that publisher? If it's 2 years, that makes it way less exciting because most songs, as you probably know, make the most money in their first 2 years of being released. So that means that most of those royalties, I guess I didn't explain what a retention period is. That allows the publisher to keep collecting after the term of the deal ends. Pretty much every publishing deal will have a retention period. So you can't just focus on the term. You gotta know what the retention period is. It could be a 1 month term and a 10 year retention period. Never seen it, but in theory, it could be that. And I think co-pub deals trick producers with that all the time. It'll be a 3 year term, only is for 3 years, but it's a 15 year retention period after that. So that catalog is locked up for a long time. And the way it works is with the retention period, it only pertains to music that was released during the term. So a lot of our clients, they sign a big co-pub deal during or prior to the term. They sign a big co-pub deal, they get 300,000, let's say, and then 3 years passes, and then they're like, okay, cool, I want to get another big co-pub deal. I'm still doing numbers. I'm still doing great. My publishing's do it. You can't. That song's locked up with this publisher. They might give you another advance, but you can't get another big co-pub deal with this song. Publishers aren't going to be interested if it's in a 10 year retention period. Even if you terminate now, they're not going to get the song for another 10 years. So you have to build a whole new catalog from scratch. I tell producers, if you sign a big co-pub deal, your catalog, your back catalog is cooked. You can build a new catalog and build the leverage up from there, but your back catalog is cooked. So yeah, when's the right time? I would say with an admin deal, don't sign one if you want to get a big co-pub deal. If you don't want to get a co-pub deal and you just want to collect all your money, get the best rate possible, work with the best publisher possible, I would suggest working with a very competent, a reputable publisher. I tell producers you're better off signing with a very competent, reputable publisher that signs you at 80/20 than working with a publisher you never heard of before, nobody works with at 90/10, because the competent publisher will probably collect more money from you than the one that doesn't know what they're doing. You're not going to have good customer support. You're not going to have a good portal probably. And there's going to be other things that are wrong with that company. You're probably better off doing 80/10. Sorry, 80/20. The publisher I work with the most is Cobalt Cosign. So if you don't know Cobalt Cosign, it's basically Cobalt is the biggest independent publisher. They have the best systems and for collecting. And they started Cosign as an opportunity to extend that system that typically was only available to big writers to kind of like BeatStars Publishing, except you have to actually apply to get in. So anybody can work with Cobalt Cosign if your catalog is at a certain size. You can just apply to get in and they work with you. It's a month-to-month rollover term. And I think the retention period is only a year and a half. So you have a lot of flexibility and they're going to collect a lot of your money. So that's my recommendation. If you're interested in Cobalt Cosign, let me know. Yeah, or there's other publishers that are small and independent as well.
All right. So yeah, so there's a lot to those publishing deals. So producers
There is.
just run out and get them just because they heard somebody else in the studio, say that, So Daniel, let me ask you this, and you don't have to say names, of course, but what's the biggest unclaimed master royalty amount that you've ever discovered for a producer?
This is actually one of them right here. So this amount was $417,000 from Warner for one account. So for certain clients, we've collected over $1 million for. But for one account, this is one album. The producer was owed in a backdated amount. So he's gonna make a lot of money into the future. But in a backdated amount for the last 8 years, he was owed $417,000. And he had no idea about it. We reached out to him. We were following up with him about it. And nobody ever told him about master royalties before. So he thought we were just kind of, you might have seen us reach out to you in the DMs before talking about master royalties, and maybe you know about master royalties, maybe you're collecting all your master royalties, but most people aren't or don't know about them enough to make sure they're collecting everything. So we're fine reaching out to people and letting them know what's out there for them potentially in case they don't. And obviously, hopefully, we work together. So yeah, so this was an invoice or at least a payment remittance for 417,000. That was the biggest one lump sum for one account that we received. But yeah, like I said, we're working with some producers right now. As we keep getting into the space more, we have a couple clients that we're collecting over 1 million for. That they're owed a master royalty. These guys are already millionaires. They're already making a ton of money off their music, and that's why a lot of them don't even realize they don't care. We're signing a lot of guys that are those mid tiers. They got a couple big records. They got 50 million, 100 million streams on Spotify, and they made a good amount of money, but it's drying up. And those are the people a lot of time that answer us. So for us, it's like working with the big guys. It takes somebody making an introduction. They're not answering a random DM. It's taking the introductions as you might expect to working with Turbo. Like he's not answering my DM, but we had a referral, and now we're working with him on some master royalty stuff, and found some money. The money's out there for a lot of guys.
Oh man, that's oh man. Some of you producers, man, you're getting your money, getting some money, but there could be a much bigger bag out there, especially for all my producers out there who got a lot of placements going. So, speaking of placements, the studio environment, the creative environment, it's a place that we like to feel good. We like everything to be positive, everybody to, be in a good mood. And the conversation of business and money can sometimes start to spoil things or sometimes make things uncomfortable. So, how would you advise producers to bring up the business conversation, the money conversation when it comes to them in working with recording artists?
How does a producer, what's my suggestion to work with an artist when it comes to having those business conversations? First thing I would say is understand that there's a lot of value that comes from having a barrier in between you and the person you're working with. So I tell a lot of my clients all the time, a manager reaches out, he's a producer that is doing pretty well. And he wants to work with my client. And I tell him, consider me the bad guy. Consider me the person that is asking for things that you weren't, even if they're telling me to ask for it, the person on the other side isn't necessarily assuming that the producer asked for it. They're assuming that the lawyers or the manager is an asshole, and he's just asking for too much. So having a barrier in between you and the other person you're trying to collaborate with, there's a lot of value that comes from that. Even if you're making the same amount of money, or let's say the manager doesn't make you money, either way you're getting $1,000 advance, same amount of publishing, same mass royalty, but the manager is taking 20%. A lot of times it's worth having aside from just not having to be worried about it and not having to, deal with negotiating and all those things, be a full-time creative and having a manager handle the business. Aside from that, there's a lot of value that comes from having somebody have that conversation with you. Let's say you are having that conversation yourself though. And you're a super entrepreneur producer that wants to make sure that you're handling your business on your own terms. I would just say be direct, be honest, tell them what you think you're worth, sympathize with their side. So, say, hey, this is typically what I asked for, and this is what my standard rate is. Are you able to accommodate that? They say, no, we don't really ever do that because we never pay producers master royalties. I think that's fucked. I think that, pretty much every artist should pay master royalties, but that is their standard. And that's what other producers have told them that that's okay. Like the industry standard for independent artists getting a master royalty might be 3%. All the time we hear, oh, no, it's an independent artist. We pay every producer 3%. That's the standard. Yeah, that's the standard with major label artists. And the reason that's not the standard with independent artists is because with major label artists, the artist is getting a 16% royalty with their label, and the producer is getting 3%, which comes out to that 3% comes out of the 16, not the full 100%. So that means the producer is getting 15 to 20% of what the artist is getting. So if you're independent, you're releasing through DistroKid, you shouldn't be getting 3% master royalty. That doesn't make sense. You're supposed to be getting 15 to 25% master royalty, maybe 50%. So I say that all to say, just understand where the artist is coming from. They might actually have certain experiences that you don't know, and standing too strong on business might hurt you a lot more than it helps you. And we see it all the time.
Definitely can be tricky, but you know, you got to be candid and like Daniel says, he's okay being the bad guy. So if you guys want to put your hands up, and say, hey, it wasn't me. You know, Daniel's the one who's pushing for it. He's perfectly all
Yeah.
right doing that. Now, when should a producer ask for their advance to be non-recoupable?
There's a big misconception as to what does non-recoupable mean. There's a couple of things that that could mean. So one way of a truly non-recoupable advance doesn't exist for major label artists for the most part. 99.9% of the time, the producer is not getting a truly non-recoupable advance. And if you're working with a major label artist, you should probably understand that. And if you're asking for it, it's probably now. What does it mean to be truly non-recoupable? That means that you're getting the money up front. You're getting, let's say, $5,000. And as soon as the song gets released and starts making money, you start getting more royalties. The advance doesn't have to recoup, and you don't have to wait for the song or album to recoup. If you ask for a non-recoupable advance, let's say you ask for, let's say 100% non-recoupable advance, what the paperwork will probably look like, especially if you're negotiating on your own, what the artist team is going to send you, it will say that, okay, that $5,000 advance, it would really be a fee if it doesn't have to be recouped. That $5,000 fee that you receive is you don't have to recoup that. That doesn't mean that you will start receiving royalties right away. It means that you have to, as soon as the album or the song recoups, you'll start getting your royalties. Record one royalties. Is that something that you've ever struggled to understand as well too? It took me for a long time to understand record one royalties. Yeah. So record one royalties, the way it works, producers are paid record one royalties. Artists are typically not paid record one royalties. What that means is in your producer contract, it probably should say something that says you're paid royalties from record one. What that means is, let's say you didn't get any advance, and let's say the song recoups at 10 million streams. As soon as the song recoups at 10 million streams, does the clock start ticking then? Meaning, do you, okay, now it's an empty bank account that starts getting filled up? Or has it been building up this entire time? And as soon as it recoups, that bank account unleashes to you? That unleashment is record one royalties. So we've had we reach out to the label and we work with master royalties. So we reach out to the label and we'll get the account set up. Their advance will be recouped. It will show on the statement that the producer is owed $4,000, let's say. They're owed it, but it will say underneath project unrecouped, meaning the song didn't recoup yet. So we can't pay you those royalties until that song recoups. So if it wasn't record one royalties, that bank account wouldn't start building up. That $4,000 next cycle might be 5,000 and it's still unrecouped. Then it might be 6,000. It's still unrecouped. Then it might be 8,000. All right, now it recouped. You're getting an 8,000 the moment it recoups. That's record one royalties. If it wasn't record one royalties and this is how artists are paid, the artist would start as soon as it recoups, then that account starts building up, if that makes sense. So I guess was that it? That was probably the best I've ever explained record one royalties.
Yeah, man. I
I'm
totally
getting better.
understand it now, man.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it took me a long time to understand. I'm not gonna lie. When should a producer ask for a non-recoupable advance? Okay, cool. So to get back to that, if it's a major label artist, probably don't ask for it. I mean, unless you have some leverage, it's not going to be approved. It's not going to be 100% non-recoupable, but you can ask for 50% recoupable every time you get a major placement. I would recommend asking for 50% non-recoupable, and that means that only half your advance has to recoup. And before you start getting that bank account balance starts basically generating. With an independent artist, if you're getting a $50 upfront payment, start getting paid your master royalties right from there. I mean, otherwise you have to wait for them to calculate how that $50 gets repaid. I mean, independent artists have no royalty accounting really at all. I think DistroKid, I've never actually confirmed it. DistroKid has some feature that allows you to, or maybe it's United Masters, one of them, that you could say that the producer got $100 advance and it calculates how much the producer generated. And it's not until that threshold is met that, more money starts being generated. Yeah. So independent artists, you can ask for it all the time, I guess. Major label artists probably just don't ask for it, ask for 50% recoupable. Great questions. Great freaking questions.
Thank you so much, man. What exactly is the Music Modernization Act and why was it so important?
Yeah, so the Music Modernization Act noticed that the music industry is changing. I'm not the leading expert in this at all, but the things that stand out to me, I'll let you know. So a couple things happened from the Music Modernization Act. One of them was, hey, mechanical royalties are not being paid out in the same way that they were before. So before, with physical sales, the record label would collect all of the money. If I sell a record to somebody at a CD store, let's say I sold it for $10, the publisher would be owed some of that money. So the record label would make the money, and then the publisher, the record label, would be actually the one that paid the publisher mechanical royalties in a lot of ways. Nowadays, it's not like that. The record label is not really paying the publishers, the writers, royalties in the same way. So the Music Modernization Act, one of the things they did was start the MLC, which what the MLC was like that's actually partially funded by Spotify, because part of the Music Modernization Act was it recognized that the DSPs aren't paying or ensuring that royalties are being properly distributed in the right way. So they're like, hey, we're going to start the MLC as an opportunity to fix that issue. And the MLC, the Mechanical Licensing Collective, part of it's got two sides to it. One of it is to actually pair the writers that are owed money to the records. The other one is actually to collect and pay out those royalties to the writers. And so that's part of the Music Modernization Act is creating the MLC. There's some other things that go along it as well, but I don't want to speak on things that I'm not super familiar with. So I think that what one of it is just one of the main things from the MLC is just recognizing the music industry is changing, and let's do a couple things that are in the interest to ensure everybody, all the creators and publishers and everybody is paid out properly for their work.
Okay, and with the MLC, is the MLC and Harry Fox somewhat related, or what exactly is the difference between the two?
They communicate in ways that I don't fully understand, but what I do know understand is the MLC will collect the mechanical royalties generated from streams in the United States. Harry Fox is collecting other mechanical royalties that are generated from, let's say, physical downloads and or not physical downloads, digital downloads and physical sales and other mechanical royalties. And in some way, they collaborate on things that I don't fully understand. But what I would, what I think the most important thing is to understand is the MLC will collect your mechanical royalties from streams only in the United States, and you can register with them directly very easily. With the Harry Fox agency, it's not really that much, and you probably don't have much that's sitting there if you register at the Harry Fox agency, unless you work with the artist that sells a lot of physical copies for whatever reason.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'm guessing like people doing like these vinyl releases and things like that that might play into it
Yeah.
a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're doing a lot of vinyl releases, then you should probably have a publisher ensure that you're collecting all your royalties from that the Harry Fox, or try to do it yourself. But I haven't met anybody that's like successfully made a relationship with the that's not focused on being a publisher with the Harry Fox agency.
Dave, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. What new things do you have coming up that the producer community should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I would just say a lot of content. I mean, one of my biggest focuses when I was coming into the industry was being the lawyer that shared more than any other lawyer ever did. And a big focus for me is actually executing on that promise. No matter how busy I am, I need to make sure I have the time to actually. I love helping people, right? So naturally, if somebody reaches out to me about a contract, they have no money, I want to help them with that. And I've run out of time. I pretty much ran out of time to do things with, and I have to be a little bit more selective. So hey, content allows me to help thousands of people at a time. So if you really want to tap in with what we're doing, I would just say follow us on Instagram, producer.royalty. And then on YouTube, just look up producer royalty and you'll probably find us there as well. And yeah, if you want to just, I don't have much content coming out with the royalty law firm. But I will very soon. I would love to grow that page a little bit as well too. And aside from that, yeah, just stay tapped in with the content. There'll be a lot of information out there that you probably won't find anywhere else. I'm big on that as well too. And yeah, feel free to reach out. If you shoot me a DM, I'll give you my number and you can consider me a part of your team. And I'll answer any questions you have, or have somebody on my team answer whatever questions you have, and just make sure that your career's again, go in the right direction. We love to give back as much as possible.
Do you have some final words of encouragement or words of advice for producers to walk away with?
Not easy, man. I have a lot of admiration and respect for the people that commit their lives to being a producer, and it's really not easy at all. And it's a lot of luck involved, and it's a lot of just being right place, right time. So you got to put yourself in the most right places that you possibly can, so you can get lucky. I know for me, a lot of times I get a little maybe envious is not the word, but maybe it's close to it. Of other lawyers that like, hey, how the fuck were they able to get this client? Right place, right time. That's really what it comes into that down to, and it pretty much in the same way. That's what a placement is. It's just you got to put yourself in the right, as many places as possible. Focusing on the music is great, but that's not the people that get the most placements are often not the people that have the best music. It's people that are just putting themselves out there the most. So hopefully that helps, and just take the time to learn the business. If you don't find success as a creative, there is a huge opportunity to enter the business side. Most of the most successful managers I know started as producers. They understood the space. They speak both sides of it. They understand the creative's needs. They understand what goes into it, and they had an interest to learn the business. If you want to learn more about the business, follow our page and watch some of our content. And you'll learn a lot from that. And just reach out to people, be like, hey, I'd love to help you out with this placement. Do a lot of free work. I'm big on that. Just do a ton of free work, and you'll get a lot of people that appreciate it. And then you probably build a business from there.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Daniel. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you subscribe to the Made in the Studio podcast. Make sure you rate it. Make sure you leave your comments. I need to know that you guys are enjoying this, so that way this podcast can keep going. Daniel, producer Royalty, thank you so much for giving all these gems. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of misinformation online, and we need real people in the field to clear things up and give that accurate information so people aren't misled. So I wanted to say thank you for giving all the information out for free, sharing your time with us, and being present in the producer community. Your face is very recognizable amongst producers. So I definitely want to say thank you for that.
Sure, man. Thank you so much for having me. This is my favorite, interview that I've done. For a great reason. You took a lot of time to ask great questions. I know all your other interviews reflect the same thing. So if you guys aren't already tapped in with the podcast, then I definitely recommend tapping in, because this is probably the best podcast to learn about the business side, and tied with the Producer Royalty podcast as well too. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you, Desmond.